Hello and a very warm welcome back to HuwsNursery, and one thing I really want to do is to start exploring a lot more with things that you leave in the comments section, whether it's asking questions or giving suggestions or maybe your observations. I want to really look at interesting things that stand out and make a whole video about it. So I've got one of those. So I'm going to paraphrase. The first comment wasn't written that easy to understand, but basically I thought it was a good idea to sow in loo rolls or newspaper and that you can put it straight into the ground without disturbance. I did that once about 2 years ago and nothing at all germinated. I concluded that they put some chemical onto the paper so it doesn't rot. Why they might worry about that, I'm not sure, but it was a complete failure. So the first thing that I want to say is that if you try something once and it fails, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work at all. Keep on trying new things. For example, we've had parsnips succeed every single year, apart from this year, and we followed everything to a T and even had to sow them 3 different times, but they just haven't really appeared. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. But what was really interesting was the comment that replied. So the comment said, "I've tried that also, it doesn't work, the roll stays too wet and the seedlings get easily diseased by dampening off. Better to just use modular seed trays and pots. Unfortunately, many of today's fads don't work, they look glamorous and ingenious, but are just for video views and clickbait." So I just hope you're not mistaken, because anything I do on this channel is basically things that I've done in the past or experiments that I'm working on, and I'm keeping you updated with that. I'm not the kind of person that is just going to show you something which looks cool but really doesn't work, because what I'm trying to do is to inspire as many people as possible to grow their own food at home. So it was very interesting to read this, and the first thing that I want to highlight was the idea about damping off. So damping off is a disease, it's actually a fungal disease, and this is quite prolific if you're growing seedlings in a poorly ventilated, very wet and crowded conditions. The fungus really does flourish in wet compost and needs this moisture, this high moisture content, to pass on to other seedlings. And what happens when a seedling gets it is that it basically collapses and dies, and it looks like you haven't given it any water at all and it's wilted. So as that comment actually mentioned about sowing in modules, that is correct. If you want to avoid damping off, then make sure that you do sow modules, because it reduces the risk for this fungal disease to spread from one seedling to another. Now, I'm not an expert at all on this, but in my opinion, with damping off and using cardboard loo rolls, those are individual modules, but they might not be as effective as, say, you're using something like plastic modules, because there's that no set barrier, because cardboard does break down. But what we did ensure was that we've prevented the conditions for damping off to thrive. We have the cardboard loo rolls in a well ventilated area, so often we'll have one or both of the solar tunnel doors open. We don't actually overwater. If you're growing something in cardboard loo rolls and it's an overcast day, something you can aim to do is actually just give them a soaking every 3 days, and that's all that you need. And you'd be surprised actually that seedlings need a lot less water than you first think. Another useful thing to note is, because the fungal disease of damping off thrives on the surface, what you can do instead is water from below. So you can get a tray and add about a 2 centimetre or an inch layer of water, and lower your pots or your modules into that and leave it for about 10 minutes. And what happens is that it waters from the base, and the water gets sucked up into the soil and up around the roots, and this is just a very interesting way to prevent damping off. Now, what could be happening if you feel that it isn't damping off is actually overwatering. If you saturate the soil, it deprives the soil from all the oxygen which the plant actually needs, and when you've got no oxygen or air pockets in the soil, this can cause a plant to fall over, which is why you don't see many plants growing in standing water. I know that growing in cardboard loo rolls is very possible, but what you do need to do is just manage the watering. So if it's an overcast day, then watering maybe every 3 to 4 days is all that you need. And you'd be surprised that seedlings don't actually need as much water as you first thought, especially once they get going. So on hotter days you might want to reduce this to once every 2 days, but you don't need to water them every day. A good sign to know if something needs watering is by looking to see if the surface is dry, and you can dig a little hole, and if the first top inch is bone dry, then definitely give it water. If not, then the plant is going to be absolutely fine. So thank you very much for watching, and definitely go ahead with growing things in biodegradable pots. They're not a fad, they're really easy to do, but the main problems do come from just water management. So as long as you get your watering right and make sure you prevent a really good atmosphere for damping off, so to make sure that it's well ventilated, not crowded, and also not completely saturated, then you'll be well on your way for a very successful germination rate. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've got anything you really want me to do a specific video about, then please tell me down below in the comments. Goodbye.